All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the big one. This is the big discussion that I've been waiting to have for quite a while. And I specifically kept from trying to do any streams like this, particularly in light of, finding out that the series was going to end. So I figured it'd be best to wait for the series to end before we have our great big My Hero Academia discussion. Good to see you, Ginger. Good to see you, Michael. Good to see you, Snow. Let's begin, shall we? Yo, peoples! Kyushu92 here, and welcome to my big My Hero Academia discussion. The series is over, everyone. Hold on, let me put my headphones away so they can charge up. The series is over, everyone. The last chapter of My Hero Academia was the day before yesterday, was on Sunday. So let's just go over everything that's transpired in the last chapter. Last chapter cuts to basically it shows us 8 years later with Midoriya as a teacher, but still a hero, and the rest of his crewmates, they all become, they're all heroes as well, and they're also leading like a lot of efforts around in different areas as well. Many people we saw as kids have grown up to be teenagers now, and so much time has passed. All Might is still around. Remember when people were saying like All Might is going to die, and the dude, ain't this something? People were saying that All Might is going to die, and I remember saying it's such a trope for the mentor to die in order to push the main character forward that I was like, well, we'll just wait and see. All Might lived throughout the entire series. He lived! I honestly would have liked to see Deku using his new suit. It would have been cool. But here's my thing about that, though. And now technically he is using his suit, but, you wouldn't want it to be like him just using his suit specifically as an older hero and then not see everyone else doing something. It was really more of a like bringing an end to this entire series in a meaningful way where you got to see everyone to become heroes. This is the story of how I became the world's greatest superhero. No, this is the story of how they all became the world's greatest superheroes. And that's how they end. It's not just Midoriya who's capping off the entire chapter for this, capping off the entire series. It's all of his friends, because it really was a story of not just Midoriya being a hero, but everyone basically showing that they had the capacity to be on the same level as Midoriya when it came to heroes. But I want a sequel series like they did with Tokyo Ghoul Re. Look, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would like to see more of My Hero Academia. Only time will tell if we ever get anything more from My Hero. But let's go ahead and just discuss it. I would wonder if they imitated all his quirks in the suit like All Might did for the students. I mean, given that it was pretty much funded by Bakugo and all the other members of his all of his friends, and Mei Hatsume was in charge of having it done as well as pulling as All Might was pulling some strings across the seas. I wouldn't be surprised if the suit that Midoriya got was able to replicate a lot of the quirks that he had, and it can do that now. I wouldn't be surprised. But let's just get this out of the way. How does everyone feel? I don't think I asked people that, but I think it's better to ask you like a couple of days after the series is over. When the whole feeling of wow, this series is finally over, when it really starts to set in. How does everyone feel? How does everyone feel seeing the end of My Hero Academia in your lifetime? Now, I imagine people were probably feeling the same way when Attack on Titan ended many years ago. But how does everyone feel? Have you decided on what manga and manhwa is going to fill the slot of MHA on the channel? Yes, Sakamoto Days. Now, Shonen Sensei, firstly, hi. I wouldn't be mad if Deku's new suit has the same power he had from before. Basically, so are you saying all the quirks of One for All, or just the superhuman aspect of One for All that allows him to move as if he has full cowling? But yes, Shonen Sensei, first, it's good to see you. But yes, I have decided on what is going to fill in the spot for My Hero Academia, and it's going to be Sakamoto Days. Now, I will fill that in. Sakamoto Days will move to Sunday when I've completely caught up with the series. And so we're still going to continue with the Sakamoto Days Mondays read through, going through each individual volume until I fully catch up. And then Sakamoto will move to Sunday. It'll move to Sunday to fill in that spot that My Hero Academia once had as well. And given how Jujutsu Kaisen is going, I need to work on trying to catch up to Kagurabachi as well once I get some free time. And, once I get some free time that's comfortable for me. And, try and add that in as well. Because I hear that Kagurabachi gets kind of interesting as well. But yes. You just mean One for All. Honestly, like how it ended, as did I. I thought it was good. But Psycho and Ravi, it's good to see you. Haven't seen the end yet. Ravi, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? We are going to be discussing all of My Hero Academia from beginning to end. I really don't want to spoil you on anything that you haven't seen yet. But I don't want to spoil you unless you're talking about Attack on Titan. If you're talking about Attack on Titan, then then I'll be careful with that too. Have you considered Kaiju number 8? Just here to say hey and bye. All right, Ravi, you go ahead and get out of here so you don't get spoiled on nothing from Sunday. I really don't want to ruin the ending for you. So, you have a good one. I'll see you in the next time. Catch up with My Hero Academia when you can. It's so sad that JJK is finishing this year. Rumored. Have I considered Kaiju number 8? Mind you, I did like that one stream. I did that one stream where I was reading a whole bunch of manga that I actually don't cover on the channel. How many chapters is Kaiju number 8 right now? 111 chapters. It's at 111 chapters. I've thought about Kaiju number 8. I've thought about it. But if I don't do Kagurabachi, then maybe I'll do Kaiju number 8 instead. If I don't do Kagurabachi, then Kaiju number 8 may be the series that I use to fill in with JJK instead. That's just how I feel about it. So far, so good. Sad still about MHA ending, but appreciate the time skip that gave us closure. I would have loved to see more dialogue from Uraraka and Midoriya, as would everyone, because everyone automatically shipped them and just thought, you know what? They're going to end up together. And when Horikoshi wasn't really pushing as much as people would have liked to push, people were all like, no, we want Uri Midoriya shipping! And I'm just like, if it happens, it happens. But if it doesn't, I mean, it ain't gonna be no skin off my nose, because I ain't looking at them. Because I don't ship people when it comes to series. So for me, it was, I take it or leave it. It really doesn't matter for me, as long as it didn't negatively impact the story. So I was like, neither here nor there. But let's go ahead and discuss this whole series from the beginning. So I started this, and I know I told you guys I started this 5 years ago, but it was actually 6. It was actually 6 years. You guys ship me with everything, even... Look, I don't. It's you either take it or leave it. I'm not... I don't do the whole... this character is gonna... Sorry, my lips are probably gonna get chapped during this stream. this character will probably go good with this character. Have I seen the depressing Deku memes? Not really. Mm-mm. Are people doing that because there's no more... Oh! Do not want this falling on the floor. Are people doing that because My Hero Academia is over? Gotta get it evenly all around the lips. There we go. Let's see. Do you think there will be a second box set releasing when the final volume releases covering 21 through 42? It's possible. It's possible. For me personally, the one thing that Attack on Titan and MHA have in common, besides overall being very good series, is that I was extremely disappointed with how they both ended. So you were disappointed with the endings of Attack on Titan and MHA? Well, go beyond plus ultra. Yes, go beyond plus ultra! So, I'm curious, Shonen Sensei, what were you disappointed about with My Hero Academia and how it ended? I'm curious. We really do need to talk about this series from the beginning and go all the way through. We can take this time right now to get everyone's comments out, but we really need to go from the beginning of the series and then just talk about all of it. Like all the big moments and what we thought of character development and stuff like that and get all the way to the end. So we really do need to address that as well while we're here. But, because here's one thing. I sometimes be watching Rogers Base and his members only stream because I'm also a member on there as well. So when he has like these little streams and he's talking, some people will say like, "Wow, I can't believe My Hero Academia has gotten this bad." And I'm just thinking, "Wait, what are you reading for you to say that My Hero Academia has gotten bad?" And they're saying like, "Yeah, I kind of dropped off of My Hero because it's gotten really, really bad lately." And I'm just thinking, "What? What? What's bad about it?" So I was in those moments. I was looking for anything to visually see that was bad for My Hero Academia, and I really couldn't find anything. The only ending that I didn't like in the series was Demon Slayer. Honestly, just felt so generic. Them basically beating the boss. It's only bad because the fandom. Yeah, here's the thing. The My Hero Academia fandom is, while the series is great, the fandom can be one of the most toxic communities. One of the most toxic communities for a manga series. Because I remember back when I was reading the chapters when we got Star and Stripes. And we got those series of chapters with her, and then she got killed by Shigaraki, and then everyone was all like, wow, this was such a poorly done character because Horikoshi brought her in and then immediately killed her. And I'm like, do you realize how overpowered Star and Stripes would have been if she lived? Being able to use New Order to do things that no one else could do and literally just warping reality in order for things to happen. Do you realize how much of the limelight would have came off of Midoriya if Star and Stripes showed up? Given how powerful her quirk was, she was overpowered. Now, I'm not excusing it. Or saying like, oh, it was without imperfections, because I would have liked to see more of Star and Stripes, but the amount of time that we saw her wasn't bad. It really just depends on the writing. A character's introduction can be short and yet still have massive implications. Case in point, the old granny lady at the beginning of the series that overlooked Tomoda Shigaraki. We didn't see her for 400 chapters, and she showed up at the second to last chapter and made one of the biggest impacts in society in terms of like story building and lore building. So it really does depend on the writing. It's just a fan base that ruins everything. Some people take it to the extreme And the worst cases are the ones that think that they are a better writer than the person that they're reading this entire story from. In my opinion, let's see, the fans were the reason I started the series because they were all shouting at me to read it, or they will. I'm gonna assume what that is. Not even I could be her. In my opinion, I did see the point of shipping characters on there because how bad it looks like Apocalypse every time of every day. Anyone could die in any moment, but that's me. Deku losing one for all felt like a needless gut punch. After all the training he went through, mastering the individual quirks, for him to lose it all, the end to me essentially made all of the time we spent reading those training chapters pointless. Hmm. All that time training. See, let me ponder on what you say here, Shonen, real quick. So I understand how you feel. I can understand how you feel with saying that all the time we spent having Midoriya train the quirk, only for him to give it up at the end. I honestly really don't see the problem with that. It kind of does. It doesn't make it pointless when you think about it, because he still had to. He still. I mean, there's a great degree of time between him training and then him deciding to give up one for all in order to reach Shigaraki, who was beyond the point. Who was pretty much at the point where he was almost at beyond the point of no return, and he also had all for one in his body, and it just. There was only one way that you could just break down into that mental scape for Shigaraki, and you just had to repeatedly just chip away at his mind. But in order to do that, you had to use like the strong will of one for all in order to do it. But I don't see him willingly giving up one for all as a bad thing for all the training he's done, because one thing we've learned from this entire series is that the quirk doesn't make the hero. The quirk doesn't make the hero. It helps present the hero, but it doesn't necessarily make the hero. Their actions do. And that's just me though. That's just me though. The actions of a hero is what makes a hero. The quirk just adds on to it, but it's not the one thing though. So his actions, willingly giving up one of the most power, if not the strongest quirk in the world, in order to stop this pretty much homicidal individual who simply wanted to destroy everything, who also had another consciousness in his mind that was trying to take him over so he could basically take over the world. That was it. Even though it was like a sad sacrifice, it was still worth it though, because it was what he needed to do in order to get through to Shigaraki, because that's what Midoriya does. He doesn't get to people, especially people he wants to connect to on a personal level, by way of brute force. He does it in a way of trying to understand the individual, which is why even after he pretty much gave up one for all and was there with Embers, even when he was talking to Spinner, and Spinner pretty much activated those quirks in him, and he got mad at Midoriya. Midoriya was all like looking at the doctor, said like, hey, don't do anything, just let him do his thing, because he was beyond the point of needing one for all to quell a situation. He literally got to the point where he could just do it on his own without using one for all as an security measure, as it were. So him giving up one for all for the greater good, I I personally felt like it was more poetic for him to give up that power in order to rid the world of the most evil villains to ever exist. I think it was worth it. Some people will disagree with me because they're so used to the Western comics idea of people getting their powers back and now they're more powerful than ever, because that's a very Western thing to think. But for me, the message is in you don't need a quirk to be a hero. Sure, it helps, but now Midoriya and his friends have entered into a new era where you don't need a quirk in order to be seen as a hero. Everyone can be a hero, regardless if you have a quirk or you're quirkless. But that's just my overall arcing narrative of how I saw it. Let me see. Let's see. Keep Watch or Burn, My Hero, Demon Slayer. Uh, let's see. Keep Watch, Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia, Demon Slayer, and Attack on Titan. You would burn Attack on Titan? I can see it. Let me see. I lost One for All because the quirk was fulfilled as it was made to destroy All for One. Deku training, the power had to happen, so they told him to give up One for All. It wouldn't break the mental state of Shiggy in order to defeat him in the end. Halster, it's good to see you. Let me see here. Additionally, while I agree with you that fan shipping characters is somewhat pointless because the story will play out according to the narrative regardless, but it's different when the narrative itself heavily implies a romantic attachment between two characters for literal years, and to not have that emotional payoff by having Deku end up with Ochako felt really disappointing. Shipping characters, and even if the writers write them in a way as if they should end up together, doesn't necessarily mean that they will. I know, and I know this is annoying to say, but even if the people get shipped together by fandom, and even if the writer writes it in a way as if like, oh, they're gonna end up together, and then it doesn't happen, there could be a number of reasons why it didn't go to that extra length of like, oh, seeing Midoriya hold the hand of Uraraka, or he's holding on to her. I mean, we had that moment where he's grabbing her hand and, consoling her, but it doesn't go any further than that. And I feel that's because Horikoshi really doesn't seem like the type that would try to write in too much romance to a degree. He doesn't come off as a type that would just write a whole arc where the boy gets the girl, sort of. And I feel like that might have been the reason why we didn't see too much of that, because you can tease it a little bit, but I don't know. Is Horikoshi a person that can write people in relationships? Not to the degree of Labrava and Gentle, because out of all the relationships we've seen in this entire series, Labrava and Gentle is probably the most genuine one when you think about it. Because y'all pointed out to me that Labrava and Gentle got married and now they're running their own company now. So out of all the relationships that we've seen, I think Gentle and Labrava are the only ones to see like an actual clear resolution. Because the same thing can be said for Kirishima and Mina. Like, you could see something between those two. A lot of people would like to ship them. Or you could see something between Yaoyorozu and Shoto. A lot of people would like to ship them as well. But that didn't get to any conclusion. That didn't reach any sort of conclusion in that regard. Mineta's still by himself. That needs no confirmation. But yeah, I can understand what you mean. But I don't think it's that bad if Horikoshi didn't bring that to a conclusion. Because you wouldn't want that to distract from the whole narration that was happening at the end of the chapter as well. And while it would have been nice to see Midoriya and Uraraka have a genuine moment to themselves, and for that to blossom, and for everyone's shipping to just get sent into orbit, I mean, at the very least, people still see them as people that can get together, even if the story didn't reach that point. I'm keeping Attack on Titan, I'm reading Demon Slayer. Oh, Keep Watch, or Burn, My Hero, Demon Slayer, and Attack on Titan. Oh, are you asking? Is that what you were asking? Oh, okay. I'm keeping Attack on Titan, I'm reading Demon Slayer, and I'm burning MHA. I was asking you the question. Oh, okay. Mineta is an adult now and he's still short. He's gone from 4 feet tall to 4'2". That's what I find funny. But keep burn, keep, read, burn. Hmm. Keep, read, burn. For me, uh, keep would be My Hero. Read, read would be Read would be Demon Slayer, and Burn would be Attack on Titan. No, 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 no. Keep would be My Hero, Read would be Attack on Titan, and Burn would be Demon Slayer. And I'm purely just going off of the manga, not the anime, because the anime is fantastic. But that's just a hypothetical. That's not something I would literally do since I read them all. Read them all. Wow, I just realized that all three of these series are series that I finished. Now, mind you, I'd never covered Attack on Titan on the channel. But I've covered Demon Slayer, and I read it all the way to the end, and now I can say that I've covered My Hero Academia, and I've read it all the way to the end. Attack on Titan was the only one I didn't cover on the channel, even though I talk about it quite a bit. Kitty, good to see you. Made it this time. How's everyone? Yeah, we're doing good. We're just talking about My Hero Academia today, just the entire series as a whole. So, let's go ahead. 27 minutes. 27 minutes, and we're just casually talking. Let's just discuss the series. So, let's wind the clocks back a year. So it was 2018 when I want to say it was before 2018, when I was reading, a little while before 2018, when I was reading My Hero, and I was reading all the chapters, I was reading early scans, and I was reading like from one of those, this was before I was reading from Viz. This was before I was reading officially. And I was reading My Hero. I thought it was awesome. I was watching the anime as well. I wasn't covering it. And then I decided, you know what? I'm going to turn this into a series. And then I started doing My Hero Mondays. And reading through the series. Missed the finale yesterday, so I'm all ears. Oh, fantastic. Kitty, when you get the chance, watch that reaction. Watch that reaction for the final chapter of My Hero Academia, if you haven't already. But reading through it, I believe when I stopped was around the award for best character development, in my opinion, goes to Bakugo, without question. We'll get to that. Reading it, I got all the way up to when when Shoto, Mina, Bakugo, and who else was there for the after school extra credit, after school summer school classes. There was someone else that was with Bakugo, Mina, and Shoto when they were helping out the kids with Gang Orca. I was reading that, and that's where I stopped, and then I started doing My Hero Mondays, and then I started reading all through the chapters. That was the first time I literally stripped my vocal cords because I did Bakugo's voice for the very first time, and it ravaged my voice that for at least 2 weeks, my throat was just completely raw. I couldn't even swallow or let my throat get dry because when I did that, it would just close up. Watched it, just missed a live. It was amazing. Oh, okay. It just closed up my throat, and then it just burned for like 2 weeks or so, and that's what caused me to be more conscientious for my voice. So reading through the whole series, I was like, okay, cool. We got a world where people got superpowers, but all the superpowers has certain drawbacks. Like with Bakugo, his explosion quirk works from like his sweat glands. And if those dry out, or if he's not able to use his hands, then he's pretty much not able to use his quirk. Or you have people like Uraraka, whose gravity quirk can cause her to, like lift a whole bunch of objects, but overusing it causes her to throw up rainbows, which is something that people don't really touch much on, is the fact that she just, not unless it was just an artistic choice, where she throws up rainbows, but she can't use it, otherwise she'll get like basically nauseous. And then Kaminari, he has a electrocution quirk where if he overuses it, he literally fries his own brain and he goes dumbfounded for several minutes. Or Yaoyorozu, who requires calories within her body in order for her to create objects, which is why she eats copious amounts of foods when she's like when she has to really focus in order to ensure that she's able to create anything that she wants to. All quirks have like some sort of drawback so that they are not just unlimited and overpowered. Now, mind you, there are some incredibly powerful quirks where the drawbacks are minuscule in comparison to the overarching power. One for all for one, new order, and Chisaki's overhaul quirk are just great examples of quirks that are just broken and overpowered with the drawbacks not being too big of a concern. Your voices were really good. Well, thank you, Kenneth. I pride myself on my voice whenever I read these stories for you. But let me see. The award for best character development, in my opinion, goes to Bakugo. To see where he was emotionally and mentally at the beginning to where and how he ended up was fantastic. Dude went from being like your trademark shonen rival to the main protagonist to being the literal head of the research group that funded the new suit that Midoriya uses at the end of the series so that he can continue to be a hero with all of his friends. Spearheaded! He's the first person to put money up for it! And all the moments and all the development moments that Bakugo had throughout the series, he was all like, get out of my face, Deku! To getting to the point where Midoriya was going out looking for those Tartarus prisoners from Tartarus, and he was the first person to say like, I'm sorry, Midoriya. And he like heartfelt apologized for how he treated Midoriya throughout the entire series was one of the best character development moments I have ever seen throughout all of My Hero. He has the best character development moment. Now, mind you, at the end of the series, this dude is dropping in the Billboard charts because of his volatile nature, but he's still a lot better than he was in the past. So, going through the series at the beginning, where we see Midoriya, quirkless individual, a little hopeful, scrawny kid. He was one of those trademark scrawny kids, and yet he had the I want to say his body was attuned to being a hero before he even realized it himself. Grew up idolizing All Might being the greatest hero the world has ever seen, and Bakugo, thinking he was the greatest person ever, gets swept up by the slime monster, and Midoriya, without thinking, goes out to rescue him. A lot of things transpire, but the big thing that cut away from this is the fact that Midoriya went and actually, you know what? No, we need to talk about how Midoriya first met All Might. So if I'm remembering correctly, Midoriya first met All Might when I believe this was before this was after. Yeah, this was after the slime monster. There was a big old slime monster. There was a big old slime monster that tried to get Midoriya, and he got punched away by All Might, and because All Might was out getting some groceries. And he punches away the slime monster, but the slime monster escapes into the sewer and then later grabs Bakugo. But Midoriya sees Midoriya. Yeah, Midoriya sees All Might, and All Might puts the slime monster into some like Coke bottles. And I'm wondering, first of all, how did you do that? How did you manage to get the slime dude inside of the bottles and contain him? Because he was shown to be like big enough to engulf an entire human being. So All Might prepares to jump off. Midoriya, for some reason, decides to grab onto him. For some reason, decides to grab it when he got attacked by the slime monster. Don't worry, it's all coming back to me now. Midoriya, for some reason, decides to grab onto All Might, and he's just pulled by All Might high into the air as All Might is like, great, there's something on my eye while I'm trying to speak. That's fantastic. That's not going to be distracting at all. Nope, nope, nope. I gotta get it. I gotta get it. It's on my eye. I'm back. I'm back. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me see here. Chicken and steak quesadillas or chicken parmesan? Ooh, chicken and steak quesadillas. Chicken and steak quesadillas. They all those sound good. Those two choices sound great, but the chicken and steak quesadillas sound great. Snow, who will you miss voicing the most from the series? All for One and Shigaraki. Because doing the voice for All for One, you know, being calm at all times, and yet at the same time sadistic, playing on the mind of all these heroes. You know, doing the voice for him, it was always great because I had to calm myself down. I had to calm myself down when it comes to my voice because sure, I can do the voice of the voice of Bakugo. The voice. Me and my words. The voice of Bakugo all the way. Get out of my way, Deku! Like beforehand, I couldn't do that, and it would hurt me. But Bakugo was one of my favorite ones. But I have to say, All for One and Shigaraki.
Because when I did Shigaraki at the beginning, I gave him like this voice at first. And then, when he started to get serious, I still had to give him like this raspy voice just to a degree.
So, I'm gonna miss doing the voice for Shigaraki for my read-throughs and All for One. They were all fun to do. And let's not forget my All Might voice. Ha 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 ha! It's okay now. Why? Because I am here. So, yeah, all these voices that I've done, doing the voice for Mineta, I'm gonna miss that too. And the dude never walked away with a single one of the ladies. I'm gonna miss doing a lot of these voices for these characters. I know I'm not like a paid voice actor yet, but doing all these voices for this character as a fan dub and like for the dramatic reading has been one of the biggest highlights for doing these chapters. Just ways to bring this story to life. Just turning this into an audiobook. So, above all, I'm gonna miss doing Midoriya's voice. I'm gonna miss doing Bakugo's voice. Shoto's voice is probably one I'm gonna miss as well. Shoto's voice, Shigaraki, and All Might.
I don't know if I remember doing a voice for Gigantomachia.
Still am taken aback the voices you do. Well, thank you. It all comes down to I don't want to say throat control, but it all comes down to controlling your voice
to a certain degree.
and then manipulating yourself so that your voices come out the way you want to.
I bit my tongue, but yeah, it's just like it just flows. It just flows. But yeah, I am gonna miss those voices to do. Oh, dude, I bet you be an epic audiobook reader. Thank you, dude Deku. They can't tell. But those aren't normal punches. Every single blow of his is over a 110% of his power. So that's my Midoriya when when All Might showed up and started beating up on the Nomu.
Nomu, Kurogiri, kill him. I'll deal with the children.
And then you have like who else did we have? We had Mr. Compress and we had Twice. Hey, it's good to see you guys. What took you so long? I might kill you. So, man, so many voices I've done for characters.
Then let's not forget good old Gran Torino. You know, oh, are you Toshinori?
Chicken and steak quesadillas it shall be. And it sounds good. Chef Kitty. Yes, chef. But yeah, I'm gonna miss doing so many voices, especially the voice of Koda, because let me make sure I'm prepared.
Because you know that I can do little kids' voices from time to time. Midori is my idol!
So doing like those small voices. Oh, let's not forget the one called Gentle. Ha ha! You may call me Gentle Criminal, and my wonderful technical host La Brava. So I'm gonna miss doing the voice of Gentle, because every single time he showed up, I felt the need to be oh so prim and proper. Even though he does not have an accent at all, he does have a he does have a knack for the theatrics. Isn't that right, La Brava?
Oh, you're so great, Gentle!
But Dobby was straight up insane? Yes, Dobby was insane.
Hey, Dad, it's been a long time since I saw you. Hey, Shoto. Hey, Dad, you think you'll be proud of me once I kill your latest son?
You know, Dobby was insane. But it was all Endeavor's fault, because Endeavor had the mindset of, you know, I gotta surpass All Might, because he was in at the beginning, he was in it for like the power and the prestige and being seen as the number one hero, and he didn't feel like playing second fiddle to All Might. All Might didn't care, because he was all like, I'm just here to be the symbol of peace. And Endeavor was all like,
I don't have time to play games with all of you. Shoto, show them how strong you are. Let the world know that my son will be the new number one hero. Your one purpose in life is to surpass All Might. That is why you were born.
And then we see what happens afterwards. Like, the dude gets messed up repeatedly. If you think about it, out of all of the heroes, all of the pro heroes, Endeavor is the one who suffered the most. When you think about it, the dude I can't say he walked away, because the last we saw of him, he was wheelchair bound. Even All Might is up, but the last we saw of Endeavor, he was wheelchair bound, his entire head was bandaged up. Beforehand, his last biggest scar he got was from the high-end Nomu, and it just tore off a whole scar down the side of his face. Then after his encounter with All For One in the Gunga Mountains, he lost an arm, and then he got heavily burned by Dobby when Dobby was Toya, when he tried to murder everyone with intense heat and decided to nuke everything in a 5-kilometer radius. Endeavor, out of all the pro heroes that have taken a part in the war and have basically done anything throughout all of the series, not even All Might suffered as much as Endeavor did. Sure, he may have had a couple of organs removed, and his part of it, his intestine removed and his whole stomach removed, but At least at the end of and he was almost torn in half to the point where you could see the blood start to shoot out from his torso because he was being forcibly torn. All Might still managed to walk at the end of the series, but Endeavor suffered greatly. In the way I feel bad for Dabi, yeah, because it was all Endeavor's fault, because Endeavor being married to his wife Ray was specifically for the purpose of trying to sire a child that had both hot and cold powers, and being, unique in their quirk mix-up so that they could then be, groomed by Endeavor. Groomed by Endeavor so that he could use them as a means of surpassing All Might, which is really, really twisted when you think about it. And when I look back over how Endeavor was at the beginning, the dude was horrendous as a parent. And it's because of that Natsuo literally doesn't want anything to do with his dad anymore. And I know I made a comment on saying he was really harsh to his dad during that one chapter when the Todoroki family had that intervention with Toya, who was on massive life support. I can still understand how he feels because Endeavor, he broke their family. He broke their entire family. Natsuo was getting married, but Natsuo's never bringing his girl over to see Endeavor or coming back to see them ever. He's leaving. And mind you, it's no one else's fault in the Todoroki families but Endeavor's that everyone feels the way they do. Even as they come together to try and talk to their once thought to be dead sibling/son, it was not enough that even as they pooled together to stop Toya, it was not enough for everyone to say okay, let's see if we can grow from here. Because some people are just, the hurt and the pain was just way too great. Do you eat her? No, I don't eat her, but I want to eat her. I want to eat her something good. Maybe some good meats or something. I feel like eating her. I feel like eat her. I feel like I want to eat her. Maybe drink her. Maybe I want to eat her and drink her. If you mean eat her, then I can say, everyone proceed in a orderly fashion. Proceed in a orderly fashion. In the hallway, no running. This is a no running hallway. If you were asking me to do Ida, then yeah, that's another one. I will have you know that as one of the student council members, I will do what I need to in order to ensure every student gets all of their curriculum exactly on time. We must follow the rules. But I have to say that I'm not going to say I'm surprised that All Might lived through all of this, because I got to go back to when people are saying I'm seeing death flags over All Might. I'm seeing so many death flags over All Might. He's not long for this world, and the dude is still alive 8 years after everything went down, 8 years after Midoriya defeated All for One. And he's still up and about. Mind you, he's incredibly aged now. He's got all the wrinkles of a older person. Because I think he's in his 50s, ain't he? All Might is in his 50s, right? Hold on. Let me see. Did you catch the Yu? Oh, wait, some people were... Oh, people are making comments on my latest Jujutsu review. Now, real quick, let me see. All Might. Toshinori. All right, how old is he? Age 60 plus. He's in his 60s now. And it really does show. it really does show in his face. Let me see. After being saved from death by Katsuki and Izuku, All Might's eyes regain their white sclera, like in his younger days, albeit still covered by shadow lines, as well as his eyebrows being visualized in the aftermath of the final war. After his legs were crushed, All Might is bound to a wheelchair while he continues to recover from his injuries. 8 years later, he is able to walk again. So, wow. All Might. Okay, so I forgot that his legs were crushed. I completely forgot that his legs were crushed during his fight with a younger All For One when he was using his Iron Man suit. So, dude not only had his legs crushed, but he was able to walk again. But Endeavor loses an arm, has a scar across his eye. He's wheelchair bound and his whole body is covered in burns. But All Might almost getting torn in half, having his legs crushed, and he's good. Endeavor was never... now, mind you, I'm not downplaying Endeavor, because Endeavor was an incredibly powerful hero. I say was because, losing an arm and, suffering all of these wounds to your body can regress the amount of power you have. Ask Anakin every single time he lost a limb. So, seeing All Might up and about... yeah, All Might pretty much was built different compared to a whole lot of other heroes, even after having all of that, even after his last battle with All For One rendered a lot of his organs inoperable, and he had this massive scar, and his amount of time that he could spend in One For All was just massively reduced. Dude was still able to walk around normally, and now, even 8 years later, he's still walking around. All Might is just built different. You would think that someone that is missing an entire stomach, can we just reiterate that? He had his stomach removed and part of his intestines. You would think that losing an entire major organ would, put a damper on you living completely. I don't know of people who can have like an entire major organ such as the stomach just completely removed. I know people get it like reduced in size. I know they get it like reduced in size, but I don't know of many people who can just straight up lose their stomach and then they just operate like normal. But going back, that it just reiterates that All Might is just built different. But going through the story, we get Midoriya. What I like about what Horikoshi did for all of these characters is that he basically gave us an opportunity to get to know every single one of these characters on a personal level. Specifically Midoriya and Bakugo, Uraraka and Ida. A lot of major characters had a lot of their own time to shine as characters. It wasn't like, oh, we're just going to get like a little bit of Midoriya and then some of these characters have their moments and then we don't see them again for like several hundred chapters or so. But all of these characters have major moments that allowed every single one of them to shine in their own unique way. Some of them got longer moments to shine. You can remove the entire stomach? You can? Really? You can remove the entire stomach and still function. This is the first I'm hearing of this in real life. I didn't even know this was a thing. I thought people just got their stomachs reduced when it came to gastric bypass. I didn't realize that you could just straight up remove your entire stomach and still function. You will just have to have a special diet. Ah, I see. Well, I learned something new today. Interesting. I like how Ida became a thug behind his brother when Stain was doing the hero killing. My Hero showed how even stand-up heroics could find themselves staring at that dark line when loved ones are targeted. Yes, that's what I like about Horikoshi. The whole story of My Hero is it's not black and white. That's the thing, it's not black and white. You have good and bad on both sides. Mostly bad on the villain side, but understandably bad on the villain sides as well. So, that moment with Ida, literally one of the most upstanding individuals in all of My Hero. Dude that follows the rules, wants to be a model student, a model person in general that you would never think would go down a path of, I need to get revenge and avenge my brother who's been grievously injured and try and take out the hero killer by permanently taking out the hero killer. And he's a student. He's a young person, and he has murderous revenge on the brain. Someone who would mostly be seen as infallible at the beginning of the series. Ida was I wouldn't say he was tainted. He was justifiably tempted, not tainted, but tempted in order to go down the path of permanently removing a threat so it wouldn't threaten the rest of his family. Because Stain got his brother. And in the process, he almost died. And it took Midoriya, snapping him out of it. And them bringing down Stain. But it just shows you that not even heroes are immune to the effects of... They are not even heroes are immune to, the purest forms of emotions that could drive a villain to do some things. Like rage or threatening loved ones or there's a lot of examples, but it shows you that heroes, a lot of them, are not infallible. They can have their moments where they stray down the dark path for a little bit. Like, for example, not to the degree of Ida, but Midoriya had a moment where he literally left UA, left a letter, told everyone, hey, this is what's happening, this is the quirk I have, this is how everything went down, and why All For One is after me, so I gotta leave. So he thought it was better for him to just straight up leave in order to protect everyone. Even though everyone was all like, we want to stand with you, Midoriya, if you need our help, we can help you out. And Midoriya's all like, don't worry about it, I'll take care of this myself. And trying to go down that path on his own, even if it made him kind of look like a villain in the eyes of onlookers who would see him out in the open. He wasn't taking care of himself, he wasn't eating properly, he looked more villainous than heroic going down the streets, having his power just emanating from him. He looked evil. Because he became so steadfast in tunnel vision on trying to take out All For One and trying to find him and bring this war to an end that he literally threw all sense of self-preservation and self-care to the wind. And it was even willing to try and take on his own fellow students in order for them to get out of the way so he can continue on his path. It showed how human the heroes are despite of, yes, because I know for us here in America, we have a lot of comics. We have a lot of comics where sometimes it shows the hero as incorruptible or unable to be fazed by literally anything. And we have a lot of that. But and mind you, not every single American comic does this. But what I really love about My Hero is that it can show that heroes can be so tainted and are so human that even something as simple as seeing the very organization you say you joined, we're taking examples from Lady Nagan, seeing the very organization you join being just as dirty, if not more so, than the villains you've been conscripted to actually help defeat. Like, it was when we read the chapter for Lady Nagant and her history, and when she was going up against Midoriya during the rooftop battles and everything, and we found out that the Heroes Association was also actually using her to kill other heroes that were either trying to turn turncoat or were even suspected of having contact with villains, and she was basically a hired gun in order to, keep the slate clean, as it were. And the Heroes Association said it was like, it's a necessary evil, but we must not let ourselves look bad in the public eye if the public were to find out that this hero was consorting with villains. So we need you to kill this person. Wait, what do you mean? I need you to eliminate them. And then when Lady Nagan tried to leave the Hero Association, the people in charge of the Heroes Association, like the safety committee, they tried to kill her, saying like, I hope you don't think you'll be able to just walk away from this. Literally threatened her life. So she wound up in jail, doing the dirty work of the Heroes Association. It just shows you that both sides have their dirty laundry to air out. The massive appeal for MHA is those moments where the characters get to shine isn't limited to the heroes. Yes, This is what I was trying to get to. The villains have just as many of those moments, and many times you can't help but sympathize. Twice is the biggest example of sympathizing with a villain. If nothing else, Twice is the greatest example of being sympathetic for a villain, of someone that you're not supposed to be rooting for. And I've said this across, I can say this now. I've said this across all of the years I've covered this story. The heroes are not the only ones who get their most significant moments across this entire story, but the villains do as well, and it allows you to understand them, understand their motives. We literally got a backstory for basically everyone when you think about it, except for Magne. We got a backstory for Magne when Which Wow Wow Pussycats was it that was talking to Magne in the past? Was it Tiger? I think it was Tiger. Yeah, I think it was Tiger talking to Magne in the past, but it wasn't too deep. No, it was someone else. It was someone else talking to Magne before Magne got killed by Chisaki, by Overhaul. But every villain has a moment where we actually get to understand why they do the things that they do. I don't know, I was looking at the words on my webcam instead of actually the webcam. Those are distracting off to the side, I'm sorry. But the way Horikoshi writes characters is in a way where you can understand both sides. For Naruto, you can understand the ninjas trying to defeat Madara or trying to defeat the Akatsuki, because they don't want a world where tailed beasts are used as beasts of war and everything they know and love could be destroyed by the Akatsuki. Whereas the Akatsuki, you really don't have too many people that you can feel sympathetic for. No one feels sympathetic to Kisame Hoshigaki. People feel sympathetic for Itachi. For Nagato, maybe, but not to a grand degree. Konan, yes. Zetsu, no. Sasori, no. Orochimaru, definitely no. Deidara, no. You would get some of their backstories, but not all of them. Not all of them had ones that where you can actually feel sympathetic to a member of the Akatsuki. Whereas you get villains from My Hero, and the major ones, specifically the ones that get the most screen time, not the ones that show up for a little bit and then disappear, but I mean the ones that have a significant impact on the story. Those are the ones you can spend a long time with. CJ, it's good to see you, my friend. Sorry for being late. Don't apologize for being late because life happens. It happens. And none of y'all never apologize for being late, because there could be any number of reasons why you guys are late. How many times have I started a stream several minutes past the time I was supposed to be starting? I should be the one apologizing to you guys for being late, for making you guys wait those minutes. But you guys, y'all never have to apologize to me. Y'all would never have to apologize to me for being late. Don't ever feel that way. Show up when you can. It's all good. So don't even worry about it. But it's the villains who really have a moment to shine just as much as the heroes. Like for Shigaraki, you feel sorry for him. You feel sorry for him, because after we find out that All For One was the one who incited the idea of Kotaro and his wife having Shigaraki just for the pure purpose of grooming the child to grow up and later become his vessel by filling his life with hate and malice, encouraging his father to be more strict with his children, but also allowing Shigaraki, Tenya, when he was a kid, to fantasize about heroes, but also, whispering into his father's ear that heroes aren't worth anything. The same person that killed Kotaro's mother is the same person that's telling him you need to be more strict with your children. Also, your daughter may be a little bit lonely. I hear siblings are easier to handle, or they have much better lives if they have a sibling. Boom, we get Shigaraki, who's born because All For One was thinking about using the daughter the Shigaraki's sister as his vessel, but she was too old and therefore too emotional and would probably resist him, so he needed a clean slate. So you can tell, so when you realize the backstory of Shigaraki was just steeped in the very purpose of him being born, was for him to be groomed from birth all the way up until he got older into being the new vessel of All for One. Every tragic thing that happened to him was orchestrated by All for One with the intent of just sending him into a pit of despair, with him always having this thought of, my father was abusive to me, and he hated heroes. Well, now I hate heroes as well, because they drove my father to this, and they drove me to this, and he winds up killing his entire family just using a reworked, purely destructive, because first of all, finding out that Shigaraki's quirk, his decay quirk, is literally just a dismantle portion of Overhaul's overhaul quirk, just like the destructive part of it, and that's what Shigaraki has had this whole time. This whole quirk that could have been used for him to bring things back. Think about this for a second. If All for One just copied Overhaul's quirk, and that allowed Shigaraki to bring his family back, he wouldn't be in this pit of despair that he's in. Sure, his family would probably be disoriented, having their entire bodies dismantled and decayed away and then brought back instantly, as what Overhaul is capable of doing. But just imagine how different Shigaraki's life would have been. If he was able to bring his family back with that same quirk, if it wasn't just destructive. But it shows you how nefarious that All for One is. But it also makes you sympathize with the fact that Shigaraki's entire life was preordained. It was preordained not by fate, but it was preordained by the very person that wanted to manipulate him in the first place. Literally driving him down this path where he could be all like, oh, I'm here for you, Tomura. I'm here. You can take my name, Shigaraki. Tomura Shigaraki. And you shall be the new symbol of evil. And just grooming him, allowing him to indulge in his homicidal tendencies in the hopes that he would, but also beckoning him and just appealing to the side that needs affection, that because he was pretty much deprived of it as a child. So you feel sympathetic for Shigaraki when you realize that his entire life was only meant to be used as All for One's new vessel. Everything he did was because All for One told him that it was okay to do. Morals, good and evil. Morals are for those who follow the rules. So I intend to change those rules. So, out of all the characters, Shigaraki and Twice, they're the ones that you feel most sympathetic for. I mean, Himiko Toga is right underneath that, and then beneath that would be Dabi. Because Dabi, he knows what he's doing is wrong, and he's literally just bent on destroying his father's legacy by killing all of his family members, and also exposing everything that Endeavor did to everyone on live TV. That was just, icing on the cake for him. And if I remember correctly, because I still got to catch up on the anime. Okay, it's been a Family was talking to me about food. But yes, it's you feel sad for Shigaraki and Twice and Himiko Toga, because the thing about Himiko Toga, and we'll get to Twice. Twice was like, he suffered from a split personality brought about by his own quirk, to the point where he didn't even believe that he was the real one, and he felt safe when he had his whole face covered because of all the things that he's done in the past and his quirk that caused him to like basically have a knockdown drag out with all the Twice clones that were left, to the point where he couldn't even remember if he was a real one or not. But you know, having people there for him, that actually cared for him, genuine people he could call family, that he enjoyed being around. They weren't just people around there, weren't just people, a means to an end. And really, him being with the League of Villains was like the most stable he was. And being around Himiko Toga was when he was at his peak of being stable. But when he died and was killed by Hawks, which is still kind of like one of the darkest things that any of the heroes have really ever done, where they just straight up kill a villain because of the potential of Hawks being found out after infiltrating the villains. It was still a very dark thing to do. And then that just drove Himiko Toga over the edge, because out of everyone in the League of Villains, Twice was the closest she had to family. Basically like a brother. So losing both Twice and Himiko, it's sad that all of this could have been prevented. Even Hawks was trying to tell him like there was a chance that like he could live a good life, but when things started to escalate, the chance for Twice to reconsider like his course of life, from him being a villain to potentially being a hero, it was like there wasn't a moment for that to actually happen. So that moment for him to potentially live a life where he could be accepted and he can be normal for himself was just robbed of him. Not robbed by Horikoshi, but robbed before he could get the chance to actually see that dream be realized. Himiko Toga is what happens when your own family looks at you weird and doesn't try to help you, but considers that you're the issue rather than trying to get you proper help. That's the whole reason why Uraraka was opening up avenues for like quirk counseling, because Himiko's quirk, it was, it caused her to have like this little, I wouldn't call it bloodlust, but for her to draw the blood for those that she really cares for, but she wasn't really counseled in a way for her to curb that craving, as it was, and her family just started to look at her as like she was some creepy individual, and everyone started to look at her that way. And instead of giving Himiko Toga that proper counseling so she could rein in those urges and live like a normal person of society, everyone basically just gave up on her and left her to her own devices. And then she just became a murdering psychopath, which could have been avoided if people actually took the time to try and understand why she did what she did, and then look for ways to circumnavigate that, curb those cravings, and so she could live a normal life. But no one wanted to give her that chance, because society as a whole during this whole era was like, I don't understand what's going on. What's wrong with my daughter? What's going on with my daughter? You're not doing something right. And then it's like, okay, you guys are not trying to find a solution. You're just arguing over stuff that you could be finding a solution to, if that makes any sense. So Himiko's whole state of being is the result of people not sticking with her and just trying to one, hear her out, and try to understand why she did the things that she did, and try to find a solution to it. And two, people looking at her like a monster, which just drove her even further away from society, because that's the appearance that everyone just gave her when she was growing up, from her family to her friends to everyone else. So her whole life story could have been avoided if people just did not people gave up on her. People gave up on her. Instead of trying to help her, they just gave up because it was like, because here's the thing that gets me. There's a solution to every issue. There's a solution to every problem. What a lot of people in the world today fail to do that doesn't solve a problem is go through all of your options. Like, I know there are people out there that would be all like, this thing won't work. It won't turn on and off again. Well, what all have you done? Well, I flipped the switch. Did you try unplugging it? No. Did you try flipping the circuit breaker? No. Did you try seeing if there's a short in the cord itself? No. How old is this thing? I don't know. There are people that want like an instant fix for things rather than just go through all the options to see if there's a fix for it that is equally solvable. Some people just want the one specific answer to the problem and don't want to explore the other ways of trying to fix it or trying to figure it out themselves. Me, I like to exhaust all of my options before I come to the conclusion of I can't do this or this can't be fixed or can't work. My family gets on me because of how stubborn I can be when I'm trying to fix stuff. Like, for example, my mom has a mixer downstairs where it wasn't working properly. And I wanted to stay downstairs and solve all the problems of what was going wrong with it. Was it the batteries? Is it the motor inside? I'm the type of individual where I will sit down with something and I will not stop until I figure out what it is that's causing this issue. That's the reason why, for those of you who are in the Discord, that's the reason why I've been spending so much time on Fallout 4, because this is a good example. This is a good segue. I've been playing a whole bunch of Fallout 4, but I've made a fourth character, and apparently I have run into an issue that I think is affecting my entire save, where if I reload twice in a row, my game crashes, regardless of what I do. If I reload twice in a row, my game just straight up crashes. I'm trying to farm for a weapon, and the game will crash either by me reloading a save on the second go, or if I enter into a location on the second go. And I have yet to find a way to fully remedy this. But I spent so many hours yesterday trying to figure out what is doing what. Okay, does it have something to do with my PS5 and clearing out the cache? Does it have anything to do with my character's level? Is it a certain amount of clothes I'm wearing? Is it the weapon I'm holding? Is it because I have companions? Is it the time of day? Is it because of the DLC that I have installed? Do I need to uninstall the game and then reinstall it? Options! Going through all of your options before you reach that one final solution that solves it. Now, mind you, I've yet to solve it because everything that I tried to do in order to remedy this has not worked at all, so I just think that my build for that character, which I spent so much time on, is now completely bugged, and I can't go through buildings in quick succession without the game just full-on crashing repeatedly. I literally made a video last night where that video that is sped up to be only 2 minutes long is me going through 40 minutes of crashes, just constant crashes, and I suffered 19 crashes in just that one video alone. Well over 30 crashes across the time that I wasn't recording. So add that 30 with that 19, and that's almost 50 crashes on that one specific file. So it's annoying, and I really hate the thought that I'm probably gonna have to delete that entire character and then start brand new. But I go back to the example. Nick Valentine, it's good to see you. I go back to the example of exhausting all of your options before you just write off a situation of, I can't fix this. That is the case with Himiko Toga. No one decided to go through every single option or stick with it in order to see what they could do about Himiko Toga. Uraraka was the only one that wanted to really get to know Himiko, and even though Himiko was having a hard time believing that Uraraka was actually interested in her. Hey, Kyushu, real quick, are you safe, dude? News just announced most events see under tornado watches or tornado warnings. This is the first time hearing of it. I didn't get no notification today. And I got my weather. I got a weather app up right now. It's not saying anything. It just says rain possible this afternoon. That's it. But I didn't hear anything about no weather. I didn't hear anything about no weather in North Carolina. I didn't hear anything about that at all. That's the first I'm hearing of it. Let me see here. Twice and the Mauler twins would be an interesting interaction. Yep. Proper counseling, understanding, and friendship could have helped so much in her situation and many others. That's what I do. I'll try everything until I'm depleted on options. Yeah. Sounds oddly familiar. But yeah. Yeah, the whole story for the villains and being sympathetic with them is like a lot of the stuff that turned them into villains. I'm the same way in Days Gone. I think how to take down a horde without using more resources than I need to. See, that's a good element of problem solving. But Fallout, I just chalk it up to the fact that Bethesda can't release a single game that isn't laden with game-breaking bugs. And for this to be the PS5 version of Fallout 4, and it's suffering like this, because the thing is, my other 3 files on Fallout 4 don't suffer this problem. I literally played my Brotherhood of Steel build, and I repeatedly loaded back and forth over and over and over again, and I didn't suffer a single issue. So it's just me thinking that my Blade build is just straight up busted, and I may just have to delete it and start over. I'll just have to delete it and start over. And then we'll see where it goes from there. But the story of My Hero as a whole, the way they do character development is extremely good. It's very good. It's not very often you can get me to look at heroes and look at villains and see them on the same level as character development, because Horikoshi doesn't write villains to just be one-dimensional. They have multiple layers to them. Oh, gotta have layers. But all these villains have like layers to them. Twice has layers. Dabi definitely has layers and a whole bunch of trauma. Himiko has a whole bunch of layers. Spinners has some layers to him as well, being basically a lizard man. It's a universal constant that Bethesda games are buggy. Yep. That's because they keep using the same old engine they've been using since, what? I want to say Skyrim days? Back in 2000, when was Skyrim released? November 11th in 2011? Yeah, I think it was November 11th of 2011. They've been using the same engine. They have not improved at all. They have not improved. So, it's just universal constant. But thankfully, even though as much as I would love to do a Blade build on Fallout 4, it's really not worth the frustration. Because for me, I need my games to work. I need my games to work for me to enjoy them. But getting back to My Hero, because this is the stream for My Hero, we'll talk about Fallout in another session. I really like how all of these characters are not just one-dimensional. You don't just see them and then they're gone. They each have their own significant moments that actively impact the majority of the story. Sorry, got hiccups now. Great. And you get to see more of these characters develop over time. With Dabi, as he got closer and closer to trying to get to Endeavor, you start to see like that same reserved mentality he had at first. It started to waver. They've been using it since Oblivion, I believe. Yeah, I was about to say Oblivion. But I didn't want to second guess. I was second guessing myself. But yeah, they've been using the same type engine since Oblivion. They haven't done anything different. Doom does not count because it did that. And they were just publishing it. But yeah, Bethesda really hasn't changed over the last decade. And it shows. Look at Starfield. It is literally just Skyrim in space, which is just Oblivion and Elder Scrolls. So it's really not different. It's not different at all. And I don't think Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be any different either. So that's me. But getting back to the story, looking at people like Dabi and how he grew up in the world where Endeavor was just bent on creating a child that could rival All Might. And Dabi, when he was growing up, had massive amounts of firepower, even greater than Endeavor's. However, his quirk had the drawback of basically just boiling himself from the inside, which is why he has all that burnt skin all over himself. That normal looking skin, that's grafted. The burnt skin, that's his actual skin. When you ain't it crazy to think that all of the normal skin you see on Dobby isn't actually his own, but it's just skin that has been grafted onto him, because that burnt skin under his eyes and his arms and a great deal of his body, all of that's his actual skin, because, you know, All for One found him and potentially saw him as a vessel he could use, but Toya was too bent on being like his father and being like a hero and trying to impress his dad that he ignored All for One, which was a first. Someone literally looked at All for One and said, "You know what? No, I don't need you," and escaped. Not many people can say they did that. But getting back to his home, he saw that another child was born, and Endeavor was more willing to be with this child than he was with Toya, because he basically saw Toya as a failure. So that's already a traumatic moment in this young child's life that is going to haunt him forever and be carried with him forever. But also seeing this new child that is suddenly now the favorite of the family, suddenly now the pride and joy of the Todorokis. And the dude pretty much lost it because he wanted to kill Shoto in order to say, like, "Don't worry, Dad, look at me, Dad, you'll be proud." And tried to kill his very own brother. Tried to kill his own brother, and that's when and not only that, but he saw it just drove him insane. How he was brought up by his dad, how he wanted to be a hero, but he also questioned, why should I be a hero when my dad is like this and he's a hero? Why would I want to be a hero? Is this what a hero is? Is this what heroes do? Looking at his dad growing up at a young age, then everything goes down with him basically burning down an entire forest, him basically almost burning himself to death had it not been for All for One. All for One give him some skin grafting surgery done and allowing him to heal back up. And then Dobby goes out and tries to get back to his family, but it's too little too late, and he just goes insane. I would love to see a 12-part mini What If type series based around MHA. I would love to, like a what if Himiko Toga got help? What if Shigaraki was helped by that old lady at the beginning of the series? What if All Might was put down permanently? What if Bakugo was nice to Midoriya instead of mean to him? What if Dabi was accepted by his father and Endeavor didn't mistreat the sons of his family to be the next thing that'll gain him the number one spot and surpass All Might? So many things to think about what ifs. What if Chisaki actually went down a good path like his boss warned him, and didn't go down the path that made him lose both of his arms and just complete regret from his former boss of the Hasaikai? So many what ifs. What if All for One was defeated way back when and never made it to the present day? What if Yoichi was the stronger of the two born, and he was the one that had the All for One quirk, but he had that sense of benevolence, and he was the stronger of the two. So many things to think about when it comes to what ifs. I will say this though, can we get a My Hero Academia action RPG game, please? Or a Muso, please? The series is over. You can do the entire series, or all the major fights from the series. It can be done. Do it. I want to play as All Might. I'm not going to do it on a mobile game. I'm not going to do it on a Battle Royale with My Hero or Ultra Rumble or Hero Rumble or whatever it's called. I want a genuine My Hero game. Not a fighting game either. I want a genuine game. The Last War alone had so many what ifs that drastically changed everything. Yeah, it did. The Last War gave us so much. We found out so much about Himiko Toga. We found out so much about Shigaraki, which was quite possibly the most heinous and also the most saddest thing to be told to us during the final war. Finding out that Shigaraki's quirk, he wasn't born with it. It was given to him. Shigaraki had an entirely different quirk that didn't even develop yet, that was taken from him. So we'll never know what that quirk was going to be for Shigaraki. His whole life was just meant to be a new vessel for All For One after he was done grooming him. That has got to be that out of all the plot twists I was expecting from My Hero Academia, I was not expecting that to that degree. Not finding out that All For One literally encouraged his dad to have a son, so he could then use that son as his new vessel when he grew up. What? What if Mineta got a girlfriend? That's a bigger what if than every other one that I just mentioned. Because him having a girl, what if Mineta got a girlfriend and wasn't perverted? And he was actually a gentleman who genuinely cared about a lady's feelings. What if he was sensible when it came to the ladies? Dude thought he was gonna go to Mount Lady's place and just be lavished by her beauty, and she wound up making him be the chore boy around the house. And he got nothing in return. This last war, though, should it ever get animated, is probably going to be some of the best animation we ever see from My Hero. Mind you, I still need to catch up to it. But let's talk about the heroes. So, heroes that have made the biggest significant impact across the entire story, obviously, is All Might. Even after he lost his quirk and gave it to Midoriya and was just operating on the embers, the dude, what if All Might never got injured? All Might at the height of his... If All Might never got injured, we would not have the story of My Hero. What if One for All won the war? Do you mean All for One? Do you mean All for One? If All for One won the war, that would have been the second time we've seen a villain actually win in a major superhero battle. Last one, Thanos in Infinity War. But these are things to think about. What if All Might never got grievously injured by All For One in the past? He had all of his organs. He could operate at maximum efficiency. What if All Might was able to unlock all the other quirks in One For All like Midoriya did? Because then we would never have My Hero if All Might... There's so many what ifs that could drastically change the story. Got a dip, time to start dinner. Catch you guys later. Kitty, it's been an amazing time having you here. Take it easy. Make sure you get some rest when you're done doing dinner. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Take care, Kitty. It was great having you here. Yes, All For One, my bad. It's all good, Shonen Sensei. It's all good. It's all good. Don't even worry about it. Think about all the different what ifs that could have massively, drastically changed the story. What if Yoichi was born the stronger between him and All For One? What if All Might never got injured by All For One and he was basically in his prime, operating at 100% peak efficiency? Peak efficiency. I keep looking at the words that's on my webcam because they just draw my eye. I may just scratch those off. Nope. Do not scratch the lens of your webcam. Sorry, dumb thought. But what if All Might was just in his prime? Completely. No injuries, just running off of... Because remember, when All Might said, like, in my heyday, I would have taken out this Nomu with just, like, in 3 hits. But it took over 100 mighty blows to take down this Nomu. That was prime All For One. You know what I would like to see? The Avengers, and someone said this in chat during one of my previous reactions. I can't remember if it was the video when I was talking about the story of My Hero thus far, or what are you going to do when My Hero ends. But I feel like if we ever get anything more of My Hero Academia, I would love to see All Might's entire tenure as a hero before his fight with All... Actually, you know what? I would love to see All Might's entire tenure as a hero leading up to his final battle with All For One that leaves him with that injury. We see that battle happen, and then it shows like a little scene that leads into like My Hero Academia. I would love if Horikoshi maybe gave us, like, maybe in the future we would get like the days of All Might, the symbol of peace, before it became the symbol of peace, and seeing all the significant moments that coincided with that. I would love if they did something like that. I'll take a game though, because at least I can keep playing the game long after a series ends. So I would definitely take a game. But there are so many what ifs that could have drastically changed the dynamic of the entire story. What if that old lady helped out Shigaraki, took his hand? All Might, Gran Torino, and Night Eye would have been a formidable force hunting down All for One. All Might with his strength, Gran Torino with his tenacity and his power as well, and Night Eye with his basic ability of being able to see into the future. Yeah, those three probably would have been massively broken together. But there's so many what ifs. What if Midoriya was actually born with a quirk? Because he, born quirkless. He's the quirkless individual. That's pretty much, because when you think about it, had Midoriya been born with a quirk, and then he got the One for All quirk, he would have progressively aged, because that was the case with what is his name? I think it's the 4th or 5th user of One for All who rapidly aged, because already having a quirk in his body and then having One for All basically just sped up his body's, it caused cell degradation, rapid cell degradation, by having, 2 quirks on top of one another. So I'm glad that he was quirkless, because if he didn't, then he wouldn't have lasted long with that quirk. It's like people who become Titan shifters only have, 13 years to live, because that's the curse of Ymir? That would have been the case for Midoriya. He wouldn't have been long for this world if that quirk if he already had a quirk, and then he got the One for All quirk within him. So just think about the different what ifs. What if Endeavor was a good dad? We wouldn't have Dabi overusing his powers. What if Himiko Toga got counseling, proper counseling, extensive counseling by her parents and quirk counselors? What if Twice had people that were there for him despite the fact that he had a quirk that could cause him to make copies of himself? What if he didn't get into the wrong crowd and put him down the path of villainy? What if Shirakumo's body was never turned into Kurogiri? What if All for One didn't have the drive to try and conquer the world from birth, and instead sought to use his power to help mankind? There are so many what ifs that sound far-fetched when you say it out loud, but there's so many dynamics that could greatly change the story if just even one thing was changed. But overall, I have to say that reading this story, the highs and the lows, the big reveals, like how many theories did you guys have? And it real quick, how many theories did you guys have about certain characters that never went anywhere? For instance, I thought that Hagakure was a spy simply because she could turn invisible, but it was actually Hagakure who saw the real spy, the real mole into UA, and it was Aoyama this whole time. Now, mind you, when you think about it, Horikoshi kind of teased this a little bit. He kind of teased this a little bit when Aoyama was staring at Midoriya through his window on like the 2nd floor, and Aoyama was outside of his window, and I was thinking, this Joker's outside this man's window. And Midoriya kind of felt he was near, and he was all like, is Aoyama outside of my window? So that was Horikoshi kind of giving us a little bit of a teaser that something was up with Aoyama. Hundreds for sure. I just love talking about MHA, as do I. Like I said this many times in the past when I was reading this series. This was the only series where I like to speak on it on a psychological level, on a societal level, on all multiple levels, like talking about society and the mentality of the civilians when it comes to heroes and villainy and, the world at large, and talking about character development and how these characters are behaving and how this action seems right for this action, and this action seems right for this action, and this action seems right for this action. This was the one series out of all the things that I react to where I would take a long period of time to do deep dives and talk to. Perhaps even more than I would even do my One Piece reflection streams on. And I enjoy talking about this series with you guys, getting your guys' opinion on this story, what you like, what you preferred, how you felt about the story, what you didn't like, because there's no such thing as a perfect manga. There isn't. And even if you like everything that a manga has to offer, there will be people who don't like it. So I understand people. It's fine to talk about what you don't like about the series. What isn't fine, however, is like, and I don't know if the rest of the MHA fandom is like this. What isn't cool is looking at someone else's opinion on a story and saying, that doesn't matter. Your opinion doesn't matter. Mine does, however. Now, me, I love this series. I do. But I'm never going to look at people who don't like it and say, like, well, you're wrong for that. Oh, you're completely wrong. You have no idea what you're talking about. And I have said in the past, like, I don't see why people don't like it. But that's not me saying that they're wrong for not liking it. I've said, like, I can't see it. I don't understand it. I can't see it. But the fandom, especially when it comes to My Hero Academia and just basically different manga and anime in general, some people really do take it too far. The worst examples are the ones who think that they can write better than Horikoshi. And I'm like, where's your book? Where are your credentials for me to trust how you can do this better? Because if you're doing it because it sounds good to you, then you've already failed. If it only appeals to you, that's the only person it's going to appeal to. Now, sure, you got people who go out and try to do theories and it sounds good and nice on Reddit or on Twitter, but just let the story play out. It may not be your story, but that doesn't mean that you can write one better. And this series really has brought out some of the worst in people in certain degrees. I've experienced some of them. Some of them have been, harsh to how I view My Hero Academia, even to some of the voices I've done in the past. But, it's like, agree to disagree. So, I said all that to say this. This is one of those series where I did not mind getting knee deep into it and just sifting through in between the lines and reading between characters and what they said here and what they did here. The showcases of quirks, seeing quirks evolve, like Bakugo learning that he can move at such a speed that he is capable of catching up to someone as fast as All For One and then beat All For One. Even when All For One's powers were going out of control and being so highly destructive, Bakugo, who was already severely beaten, literally beat the most powerful villain in existence, his original body. And then Midoriya beat his vessel, Shigaraki, and thus won for All For One in the same instance. So seeing quirks evolve and get stronger, I think that was such a cool concept. Where with Uravity, she was capable of moving certain objects, and then I think her quirk evolved and it allowed her to move like an entire field around her. I might be remembering incorrectly. Hold on. Yeah. Let me see. Quirk. Yeah, zero gravity. Let me see. Did it evolve? Yeah. All right. It did. Yeah, it did. I forgot. It was when she was fighting Himiko Toga and her gravity quirk extended to not just the person she touched, but everything that person was touching as well. This was during when she used gravity on the clones of Twice, made by Himiko using Twice's blood, and she made an entire wave just go airborne. Right here. During the final war, Ochako underwent a quirk awakening after being grievously stabbed by Himiko Toga while refusing to back down. This allowed the anti-gravity effects to spread among each of the objects that came into contact with each other without Ochako having to touch all of them. And I said this was pretty much similar to Shigaraki's quirk that allowed him to decay things further back than where he was touching. It spread like a virus. In her case, it spread like that as well, allowing her gravity effect to affect multiple things at once. And actually, you know what? I'm going to look up Quirk Awakening. So, let's see here. Wow, not a big list of people whose quirks have had an awakening. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of people that went through an awakening for this series. Awakening. After initial quirk manifestation, it is possible for the user. What a wild power-up. She would be a fantastic rescue hero. See, here's the thing, though. Remember back, and I gotta take you guys back. Remember when she tried using, when they were doing the rescue exercise during the first season of My Hero, during the training, the student training for My Hero, where she wanted to use her gravity in order to move some rubble, but Yaoyorozu warned against her because she doesn't know if that piece of rubble is on top of another piece, and it could affect another piece, and it could cause many things to cascade and make the situation worse. Well, now, her quirk has evolved to the point where if she touches one thing, everything connected to it will start being manipulated by gravity now. So that one concern, think about it, that one concern that Yaoyorozu had about her gravity quirk being used has basically been circumnavigated with her awakening. Because now everything that's touching that object will now float with it. So even if she were to use gravity on one object and try to move it out of the way, she doesn't necessarily have to worry about it causing an even bigger upheaval because the gravity will spread to every other piece that's connecting to it now. So that whole concern is like, now she can just make it all just float away. Her awakening has basically eliminated that rescue effort concern. That just got brought back to my memory. Her quirk awakening has just become a lot more versatile. That one concern that Yaoyorozu had has now been circumnavigated. So let me go back to this. After initial quirk manifestation, it is possible for the user to undergo an awakening. Later in life, the right emotional catalyst can cause quirks to evolve on the spot, usually requiring the individual to experience intense feelings of stress like that of a life or death situation. This results in one's quirk gaining a new level of strength and or new aspects to its nature that were previously not possible. People whose quirks underwent an awakening include Himiko Toga, which was the first instance of it, and then after that was Shigaraki. But Himiko Toga, whose transform quirk evolved to allow her to use the quirks of people she transformed into. First seen when she uses zero gravity while she had taken the form of Ochako Uraraka. Getten, whose ice ply quirk didn't even know his quirk was called ice ply. Whose ice ply quirk evolved to be able to control the temperature of ice after Redestro burned himself. Tomino Shigaraki, whose decay quirk reduced in power and potency after accidentally killing his family after his manifestation. During his fight with Redestro, his quirk increased in power and awakened, removing the restriction of all 5 fingers having to be on the target for the quirk to take effect. Katsuki Bakugo. After a near-death experience upon being stabbed by Tomura's rivet stabs, that's the black extensions with the red highlights that we've seen All for One use, went through an awakening, causing his explosion quirk to become stronger, faster, and more condensed than usual, resulting in the development of Cluster. Ochako Uraraka, after Himiko Toga grievously stabbed her on her when awakening, allowing the anti-gravity effects of her zero gravity to spread from one target to others she didn't touch in a domino fashion. In addition, Ochako's awakening removed her weight limit of 3 tons. So not only did she awaken to being able to spread her gravity out to a vast degree, but now her weight limit has just essentially been lifted with this awakening. So now she can basically lift anything now. That's kind of busted. Awakenings, Yuga Aoyama underwent an evolution that strengthened his naval laser quirk following his injuries at the hands of Kuneda and made his laser beams more rapid and more potent, even to the point of glitching the invisibility quirk of Toru Hagakure. Awakenings are typically considered very rare, to the point that not even All for One could comprehend the concept, as he witnessed the battle between Koichi Haimawari and Number 6. This must be events that happened in Vigilante. Noting the two exhibit such incredible power and resilience with their quirks that he believes shouldn't be inherently possible. In contrast to Awakenings, there are chances where people can summon an absurd amount of power in a crisis. However, this only manifests when they are truly at death's door. An example of this is Izuku, who, after nearly being crushed to death by Muscular, managed to rise to his feet and operate at 100% of his power for an extended period of time, allowing him to send the villain flying with a 1,000,000% Delaware-Detroit smash. Another example of this is Dabi, who, after overusing his Blue Flame quirk for an extended period of time, despite it burning himself to a crisp, was able to manifest the ice from his mother's Frost quirk, increasing his power's capabilities while being minutes away from death. So yeah, Quirk Awakenings are quite busted. Overall, they're quite busted. So seeing all the quirks and all the unique abilities over the course of the series was really cool, including ones where some of them were odd. Like Mineta literally could just take the little round purple balls he has on his head and just repeatedly throw them until he throws too much and then his head starts to bleed. But he can throw them and they're incredibly adhesive and sticky. Then you have Yayorozu, who has, let's just call it what it is, her quirk to be able to create anything out of her body based on the amount of calories that she has. That is busted. What you mean you can create an entire cannon? Like a whole giant functioning cannon. What you mean you're able to create entire new floor plates to replace on the ground just in case Shigaraki keeps destroying it with his decay quirk in the UA Fortress? Just basically being able to create anything you know the material, the elemental makeup of, the material makeup of, and you just create it. If she ever became a policewoman, she would never run out of bullets. Because if she understand how they were made and the ingredients and materials necessary in order to make that object, she would never run out of bullets. She would be that one person that literally has an ammo belt just fed. Because here's one unique way that she could do it. She could basically have a backpack that just feeds ammo into like this big long ammo belt for a gun, and she can just constantly create bullets for it endlessly. If she wanted to use a minigun and be the type of person that can use a minigun, she could basically just create bullets in like a little backpack, and they would just, pop out of her skin into the backpack itself, and it would just go in there. I'm just going off the rails here. I'm sorry, but quirks as a whole are really cool in My Hero. One for All and All for One and New Order being some of the, along with Overhaul being some of the most unique quirks, with All for One being one of the most powerful quirks in existence, being able to not only take power, but also give power, and also retain that same power, but apparently that has limits because he can't draw in too many onto himself. Matter of fact, let's do a deep dive. We're doing a little bit of deep dive into quirks. Let's pull up All for One. And then let's pull up his quirk. Alright, here we go. Let's see. All for One allows the user to steal quirks from anyone they touch for personal use or transfer the stolen quirks to anyone. It also allows the user to wield several quirks simultaneously. Giving and taking away quirks is done through touch, through a hole in the palm of the user's hand once it receives contact. Literally just a living vacuum cleaner in the center of his palms. But let's go down to the weaknesses. There are some limitations to the quirk. Only some recipients of a quirk acquired from All for One can handle the strain of gaining them. Subsequently, they may become mindless dolls who can't speak or think for themselves. Basically Nomo. Being quirk empowered before receiving a quirk from All For One is a factor that allows a person's body to withstand the quirk bestowal process. This spectacle, for this to be an incredibly powerful quirk, the description is shorter than the weakness. The description is shorter than the weaknesses of it. Wow, the description of this is shorter than the weakness listed from here. Let's see. Being quirk empowered before receiving a quirk from All For One is a factor that allows a person's body to withstand the quirk bestowal process. This spectacle was evident when Yoichi Shigaraki, Wolfram, and Lady Nagant were not put into brain-dead states upon being endowed with a quirk by All For One due to already owning their respective quirks. Despite this, being quirk empowered does not guarantee a person can withstand the strain, as Spinner's mind became more unhinged after receiving 2 extra quirks from All For One, causing him to behave more irrationally and violently. It is later revealed that he would have been rendered mindless had the process not been halted through advanced restorative care. However, even if a person can hold their new quirk, there is still a chance their body will not be able to handle its power correctly. This incompatibility is first demonstrated by Yuga Aoyama, who cannot use his navel laser without a special belt to assist him and even risks damaging his internal organs if he uses the quirk for too long. The effectiveness of the quirks that are stolen by All For One depends on his abilities. He stated that he did not want to steal Best Genus Fiber Master, as it required too much training and experience to master fully. This implies that he prefers to steal quirks with straightforward abilities. All of his quirks are basically just straightforward and highly destructive. Just simple-minded. Quirks that you can turn your brain off to. All For One cannot steal One For All from its wielder, as that quirk, by its very nature, can only be passed on if the present wielder wills it. Thus, wielders of One For All can act as a natural counter against All For One's ability to steal other quirks. However, he overcame this limitation in the past against previous wielders of One For All due to the sheer number of quirks he possessed. Furthermore, Kyudai performed various experiments on the body of Tomura so that the latter could be capable of stealing One For All, a feat All For One himself couldn't accomplish. It was eventually revealed that someone with strong negative emotions can override One For All's anti-theft properties because it eats away at the potential inheritor's will. The vestiges of the previous One For All users surmise that All For One has been grooming Tomura's body and hatred to override One For All's will and finally steal it in that manner. This also means that the elder Shigaraki didn't have enough hatred to steal One For All on his own. Ain't that something? All For One lacked the amount of hatred necessary for him to steal One For All, so he literally had a child sired for the distinct purpose of grooming him to just be angry at the world with maximum hatred. It's been discussed by Kyudai that over time, the large number of accumulated quirks, this is where I wanted to get to, within All For One was becoming dangerous to the user himself. Remember when I was saying that I like how we get all these quirks, but even they have their drawbacks to them? All For One has a glaring one. Let me see. While All For One could allow the user to control any number of quirks safely, there is a limit to how much the user can control without adversely affecting them, like the Nomu. Kyudai went on to state that if the memory, the amount of power of a quirk, exceeds the hardware, the body of the quirk user, then it will cause serious problems. This is somewhat similar to One For All, which causes a severe burden on the user's body and can shorten their lifespan if they already possess a quirk when receiving it due to the burden of having multiple quirks. So what we have here is All For One does have a massive stockpile of quirks within his body, but he can handle it because he hasn't overdone the limit for it. Whereas One For All, if you try and use One For All and you already have a quirk, it'll start to severely break your body down. The body strain drawback of this quirk was displayed during the Paramount Liberation War when Tomura's body began to suddenly tear apart despite having super regeneration, which activated shortly afterward. Tomura was intended to awaken with his newly enhanced body within 4 months, but was forced out of stasis early due to Merkel shattering his capsule, leaving him at 75% of his intended strength. Due to this premature emergence and insufficient power, Tomura's body couldn't keep up with the power of All for One and the multitude of quirks stored within it. Furthermore, due to the multiple different quirks stored within All for One, and have changed over the years, Tomura's body is unable to handle all these quirks properly and has experienced the effects of the quirk singularity theory, which results in his body growing hundreds of hands and fingers uncontrollably. How broken would Neito Monoma be if his quirk awakened? Well, since he can... That sounds like family, they got food. Hold on. Well, since his quirk allows him to copy other quirks, what is the drawback from Monoma's quirk? Shonen Sensei, what is the drawback from Monoma's quirk? We'll find out when I get back. They got food downstairs. I'll be right back. All right. I know I've been speaking about a whole bunch of different things, and I think I covered a lot of what I love about My Hero. So we'll continue on with a little bit of All for One and the drawbacks of his quirk. And then I really want to talk about why I think this series is so great. He can't effectively use quirks that require previously stored resource or years of training like One for All, Fat Absorption, Rewind, Fiber Master. Also, if memory serves, I believe there was a time limit on it. Okay. We'll look up Monoma's quirk here in a moment. Let's see. Where did I stop? Quirks are tied to their users' bodies and have been stated to be a function of the user's physiology, much like an organ or limb. Injuries or adverse health conditions will limit a user's quirk or their ability to use it. This drawback was even more pronounced with All for One, as the ability to use stolen quirks, along with how many quirks can be stolen, is directly connected to the health and strength of the user's body. The user's ability to steal quirks and use them is drastically diminished if they become injured or disabled. After his first battle against All Might, All for One's permanent life-threatening injuries drastically reduced his power and output with his quirk, forcing him to come up with a way to either heal himself or strengthen and take a new body to recover and surpass his previous limits. So that's the whole reason why he really wanted to get Tomura groomed and basically experimented on so that he can get back to his level of power that he wasn't able to reach after being defeated by All Might the first time. So really, when we see All for One and he's using his quirk and just how destructive he is, that wasn't even his cap. Because his body, that was a severely weakened body because the quirks he was using was hampered by his own failing health. That's crazy to me. All for One can only give and take quirks from others. It does not allow the user to destroy the ones they hold, even if they threaten the user's health. After stealing New Order from Star and Stripe, the hero placed a rule on her quirk, which stated that it would revolt against other quirks, allowing New Order to severely weaken Tomura's body and destroy many of his quirks from within. The only way for an All for One user to rid themselves of a self-destructive quirk is for them to transfer it to someone else, as demonstrated by Tomura's failed attempt to do so with New Order. Another possibility would be for the user to gain a quirk that could heal or negate another quirk's damaging effects. Let's see, gotta go clock in to work. As usual, I had a lot of fun watching and participating in the stream. Your content never disappoints, my friend. Keep up the good work. Have a blessed day, everyone, and stay safe. Shonen Sensei, hearing you say that just lets me know that I'm doing something right, as always, and I just want to say thank you for stopping by. You didn't have to, but I appreciate your company, and I thank you not only as one of my longest standing moderators, but also as an individual that I enjoy being around whenever I do literally anything. You have a great day at work, and I will see you in my next session if you are available. But take it easy, my friend. Let's continue reading this about All for One. Let's see. Although it's possible to with New Order, as a quirk rule set upon it prevented it from coexisting with other quirks. Another crucial weakness of All for One for an inheritor of the original quirk variant is the threat of the previous wielder's will taking over the body and controlling the current user, as is the case of Tomura being taken over by All for One. As described by the vestige of All for One contained within the quirk, negative emotions such as hatred and anger would allow his consciousness to take over the body of its current wielder, as well as shape the body into a whole new being. That is a fusion of the two minds, which is how All for One was looking when he took over Shigaraki's body, and he made a hand appear over his face, just like form over his face. But he didn't look like Shigaraki anymore. He looked like a mixture of both All for One and Shigaraki at the same time. However, should the new wielder possess the willpower necessary, they can replace the original vestige entirely if their will sustains enough damage, as demonstrated by Tomura after All for One was defeated by Izuku and a group of other heroes. With Nine's lower tier variation of the quirk, he could only steal up to 8 other quirks, and in his attempt to steal one for all from Izuku Midoriya, let's see. Let me skip over this because I still haven't watched the movie. With All for One's duplication of his own quirk, it is revealed during the final war that the copied version gives him less power over his stolen quirks than the original. This inferior duplicate has caused some of the vestiges of people he's stolen quirks from to rebel against him and hinder him in battle. Much later, after using the rewind drug and taking brutal damage, All for One loses control of his quirks as a result of his emotions overwhelming him. Since All for One's quirk factor resides in the user's hands, They would be unable to use it should they lose said limbs unless they possess a quirk that can regenerate and regrow them. Likewise, for All for One to steal another quirk, the user must physically touch the target, not the unleashed quirk. For example, they cannot steal a flame-based quirk by touching the flames released from a person. If a quirk factor is significantly damaged when stolen from a user, All for One will only obtain the quirk in its current weakened state, as shown when he stole Fierce Wings from Hawks, which only manifested in their small stub form. So, that's All for One's quirk. Let's go over to Monomas. Because Shonen Sensei brought it up, but he's heading to work, but I still want to address it. I still want to address his quirk. Quirk copy. Alright, description. Copy allows the user to utilize a quirk after coming into contact with its respective user. Nato only requires Nato Monoma. Nato only requires to touch as little as a few strands of hair from the target in order for his quirk to take effect. That is scary. He doesn't even need to fully touch you. Just him touching a couple of strands of hair is enough for him to immediately copy your quirk. After contact with a target is made, Nato gains full access to their quirk, at least at a basic level. It's unknown if Nato is also capable of copying further improvements that were made to that other person's quirk, so it's currently unknown if he's capable of copying awakenings as well. Copying multiple quirks at once is possible as well. Nato can hold up to a certain amount of copy quirks within his body, depending on how much he trains his quirk. The effects of the copy quirks, save for those that physically change the structure of his body, will continue to remain active even if Nato switches out the associated quirk. Size, for example, will have its size-changing effects persist on an object Nato has altered, even if he since switched to another quirk or can no longer use it due to reaching his time expiry. Then we have the weakness. There are a number of drawbacks to copy. This quirk requires Nato to make physical contact with another quirk user for it to function in the first place. He is unable to activate more than one copy quirk simultaneously, which means he must actively switch between them on the fly. Nato has a time limit of how long he is able to keep a copied quirk stored within his body, which was initially stated to be 5 minutes. However, Nato appears to have improved this limit, stating that copied quirks can now last up to 10 minutes. After this time limit is up, Nato loses access to the copy quirk until he makes contact with its original user again. While Nato is capable of copying any quirk, those that depend on accumulated resources as a prerequisite to function can't be used as intended, since Nato is only able to copy the quirks themselves, with no way to instantly replicate any additional attributes or conditions they need to work properly. This means, for example, that he is incapable of tapping into One for All's strength, as it is the result of power that has been passed down and multiplied over the course of decades thanks to its stockpiling trait. He is also hindered by the natural limits of his own physical body. While he can properly adapt quirks that specifically augment his body in some way, such as hardening defense boosts and explosions immunity to the blast it creates, he would not instantly have the strength necessary to properly handle powerful quirks that require years of physical conditioning to use without bodily harm, such as One for All. Despite Nato instinctively knowing how to use a quirk that he has copied, he doesn't automatically gain the same level of versatility over it as the original user. If he does want proficient handling on a copied quirk, he will have to repeatedly copy the same quirk and master its capabilities. When instructed by Eraserhead to copy Kurogiri's Warp Gate, Nato expressed how he will have to also master the functions of said quirk in order to effectively make use of it. Now, thinking back to what this quirk could do if it was awakened, a massively boosted time limit use and an increase in how many quirks he can use. Though I feel like even if he awakened his quirk, I still don't think it would probably... I still think it will take away from Nato if he was able to combine quirks together, because then it'll just be like, okay, so his quirk is kind of similar to One for All. So it will kind of go overboard with that point. But that's actually interesting to think about okay, we have all of these characters who have awakenings in this series. What would their awakenings be like? So there's a long list of people of thinking about what awakenings would be for what person, and that would probably take me a hot minute, and I still got food here that I need to eat. So, and I've been doing this for like 2 hours, and I didn't expect this to be too long, so I just want to give my final thoughts on My Hero as a whole. Since I started this series 6 years ago, I had no idea that this series was going to be this fantastic to read, and I've enjoyed every single thing about this series. I love the characters, I love the quirks, I love the world, I love the messaging behind My Hero, where it's like, we start out in a world where people with quirks are seen as the cream of the crop and the people you need to look towards, and we end this series where everyone, quirk and quirkless, are capable of standing toe-to-toe with each other in terms of what individual can be regarded as a hero. And not only did we get All Might, we got All Might in the beginning saying, you too can become a hero. And we got Midoriya at the end telling a kid who thought his own quirk was silly and wouldn't be useful, he was telling him, you too can be a hero as well. So the message from this was just fantastic, and I love how Horikoshi has written these characters, how he's developed these characters, how characters have had some very character-defining moments that make them even better than they were before. Bakugo having the best character arc out of every single person in this entire series, even more than Midoriya, because Midoriya has more or less been the same with his mentality. Even more so been the same across the entirety of the story. When he got One for All, he still had that same mentality. Bakugo, however, he started out crass, he started out rude, and he wound up being, one of the people that was willing to let go of his pride for the greater good and even apologize to someone that he knew he had no business being rude to all of these years. And, both he and Midoriya reconciled. And I have to say, out of everyone who had a character development moment, Bakugo had the absolute best. Then we had the big bad, All for One. All for One, to me, was one of the most nefarious villains I've ever read in manga. Sure, you have Yuhabaha and his whole dream of destroying both the human world and the Soul Society and Hueco Mundo and recreating a whole new world in his image or whatever. Sure, we got him, but All for One is nefarious to the degree where this man had plans on top of plans on top of plans. I have plans that I cannot share with you right now because the heroes would sabotage me. And he had not only that, but he was also patient, which is something that you see in a couple of villains nowadays, but it's not as prevalent because you get villains who are just loud and boisterous and just want to say, like, I got all this power and I'm going to destroy you all. But All for One was all like, let's bide our time. Let's just watch. Let's be patient. And let's adapt our strategy just in case things don't go our way. But he's nefarious to the point where he literally encouraged the birth of a child just for the fact that he could groom that child to be his brand new vessel so he could regain his level of power that he had previously before he was defeated by All for One. He literally was manipulating Shigaraki's family from the outside, encouraging his father to be more strict and mean to his children, being nice and saving Tenya from a truck and secretly inserting like the dismantled part of Overhaul's quirk into his body so that when his quirk went out of control and killed his entire family, he'd be in a pit of despair. And who would be there to pick up the pieces? All for One. Oh, don't worry, don't cry, Tomura. All of this is here for you. Secretly just grooming this kid to hate heroes, to be full of hatred, be full of destructive tendencies, for the distinct purpose of making it so that his body would be ready to steal One for All, so he could then just take over the world. Because as we all know, All for One was born into this world with the whole mindset of making everything causing everything to become his. We saw his childhood. He literally robbed his brother of nutrients, and that's the reason why Yoichi was so weak. And We saw him grow up. If people didn't give him what he wanted, he killed them. And if people had what he wanted, he killed them and took what they had. He literally looked at a comic book and said, I want to be the villain because that appeals to me. Whereas Yoichi saw the comics and said, I want to be a hero because that appeals to me. But All For One has had this childish dream of just like being the next Demon Lord. Because when he said that, he wanted to be the next Demon Lord, he said that based off of something he saw in a comic. For him to be so mature with how he spoke, his dreams of world domination just stems from something he saw in a comic book. If that doesn't scream childish, I don't know what does. But, you know, everyone standing against him being a person that sees his power as absolute, his plans as infallible, and everyone who serves him as just tools to be used, but everything that he's planned, it'll go on without a hitch. This man is literally at the end, pretty much near the end of his life, reached a point where he could not comprehend why everyone was giving their all to stop him. He could not comprehend why everyone was so gung-ho about defeating him. And that's what led to his downfall, because he didn't understand people. He understood how to manipulate people, but he didn't understand how people could still get up. Even when he would, because he loved to do mind games. And I told you guys all the time, I love it talking about All For One, because he was like this individual that loved to mentally manipulate people. Both mentally manipulate them into feelings of despair, like, oh, this child you're trying to beat up, he's actually Nana Shimura's grandson. Stuff like that. Or saying like, you know what, Izuku Midoriya, I wasn't entirely focused on you. I was only focused on All Might. But now, you have my full attention. And then proceeded to try and kill him inside a giant mansion. And then looked at everyone else trying to fight him during the final war as just like insects. Side characters. Who are these side characters in this story of mine? And he could not comprehend why everyone stood against him, even though he saw himself as like all powerful and everyone just kept getting back up. See, had he paid attention to the comic book, he would realize why the hero kept getting back up in order to defeat the villain, in order to beat the villain. But he didn't. All he saw was the end goal. And just the start of the opposition, but not how long the opposition would last against him. That's the reason why All Might beat him at first. That's the reason why Izuku Midoriya beat him later on. Because he just saw the end goal and just saw himself at the height of his power, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop him. And that's why he lost. Because all he could see was the end, and not truly the in-between. He only saw the in-between that involved him, but not the in-between that involved everyone else. See, if he truly understood people, he would know why all the heroes went as far as they did in order to try and stop him, and then he would have worked around that. But no, he was so cocky and so sure that everything he did could go off without a hitch, and no matter what the heroes did, it wouldn't amount to anything. And that's what allowed him to be beaten. All the vestiges, including Shigaraki, beat up the vestige of All For One in his body, and Midoriya destroys the body from the outside, thus putting an end to All For One. I know there's a lot of information about All For One in between, and I kind of covered it in my All For One, The Loneliest Villain video, but for someone to have all of this power and all of this know-how for living for over a century, this dude really did not take the time to actually see what it's like to be an actual person, because all he saw was just tools, objects for his possession. That's all he saw. The world was his. Literally wanted to create a world that lived and died for his sake. Everything and everyone was for him and him alone. But he could not understand why everyone was so against it, because all he saw was like, my will is the only will that exists. You can fight it all you want, but I will get what I want, because you exist for my sake. You'll die for my sake. I don't comprehend anything else except my own will. And that's what led to his downfall. And seeing all of the students of Class 1A older, embracing their roles as pro-heroes, seeing them reach like seeing the series as a whole reach a meaningful conclusion. This wasn't like Naruto where everyone just had everything talked out, because it did not turn out that way. But I like the ending that we got. It was poetic for a person who started out quirkless to go out quirkless and yet still be regarded as amongst some of the greatest heroes to ever exist, simply because his depth of character is that vast. He didn't need his quirk to be a hero. His whole mannerism, his whole character was heroic from the get-go. The quirk just added on to it. And for him to go out with his friends as they go solve a problem, his entire class, and he gets to keep up with them. People were worried that he was going to be like, oh no, he's going to be left behind because he doesn't have a quirk anymore. Psych! Sorry, his friends don't want him to be left out. They literally got a suit made for him so he can keep up with his friends and continue operating as a hero. So even if he doesn't have a quirk, he can still be a hero. Even if you don't have superpowers, you can still be a hero. You can be a hero to someone. You don't need super strength. You don't need super speed. You don't need the power of flight to be someone's hero. Shoto Todoroki, you're actually starting to come in on the last tale of what I wanted to say concerning the series as a whole. We talked about a whole bunch of different things. We talked about a whole bunch of what ifs and different characters and whatnot, but this series has shown me that you don't need superpowers for you to be super. Now, I know some people may think of Syndrome's words from The Incredibles, but I'm using it in a good sense. You don't need superpowers to be a hero. You can be a hero just by your actions. Such is the case with the old granny who, once walked over Shigaraki and passed him by, now sees the opportunity to not repeat that mistake and decides to take the hand of this one random little boy who has absolutely no idea what's going on around him and being that light that boy needs, being the hero that boy needs, and she doesn't even have a quirk to speak of. So Horikoshi, to me, one of the greatest writers of our time, because let's be honest here, America, while they can create a lot of good comics, they have not, American comics have not been on the top of their game consistently for a while now. There have been sporadic moments where comics have been good in the US, but they haven't really been good all the time. Horikoshi has given us a fantastic superhero story that has been consistent, great, full of twists and turns, character developments, meaningful developments, the viewpoints of every side of both the heroes and villains, and gave us a really awesome look at superhero life without it suffering from many of the drawbacks that plague a lot of American comics. Saying like, oh, this story's woke or whatever. Stuff that plagues modern comics nowadays that we all get tired of seeing. And Horikoshi just wrote what he wanted to. This is what happens when Oda inspires people to do stuff. Because it was literally Oda who inspired. Wow. Now that I think about it, the chapters of One Piece have given reference to different manga that have already passed on, such as Naruto, Dragon Ball, and now My Hero Academia. One Piece has outlived all of these series. Isn't that crazy? But covering this entire story of My Hero Academia has been nothing short of fantastic. And if I don't do anything else My Hero related, unless we get a video game of an action RPG or a Muso of My Hero Academia, I just want to say what an honor and privilege it has been for me to cover this entire series for the past 6 years. I thought it was 5, but it turns out it was 6. And I just want to say thank you for watching My Hero Mondays at the beginning and just tuning in to every time I've done a stream for My Hero repeatedly over the years, listening to my voice. I know I don't have. No, you know what? I'm not even going to downplay myself. Thank you for listening to my how I've done voices for characters in this series. Thank you for the feedback, stuff that you like about my reaction, stuff that you didn't like that I could have improved on. Thank you for that. Thank you for every opportunity you guys have blessed me with reading this entire series for all of you. And it's just been an honor, and I hope you guys enjoyed everything I've done from 2018 all the way until now. And it's just been a joy. And like I said, if I don't see you in anything else My Hero related, Thank you. Thank you for being my hero so that I could bring you my hero. But yeah, that's all I got. I agree with you. Horikoshi knows how to tell superhero stories pretty good. Yes, he does. He does. But I'm done, ladies and gentlemen. I'm done with My Hero Academia. Unless they get a new game that comes out that appeals to me, I am done with My Hero for this channel. Never thought I'd say those words so soon, but yeah, thank you. Thank you for blessing me with your presence, because I wouldn't have been able to do as much My Hero without you guys enjoying it. I'm just going to be honest, I wouldn't have been able to, so thank you. Now it's time to eat. Hope y'all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. So have a fantastic day. And once again, as always, later, peoples. Go beyond. Plus Ultra! Everything's okay now. Why? Because I am here.